Wife brought her CrossFit trainer into our home while I was working 60-hour weeks to support us. Then I discovered months of texts planning their future together and her laughing about taking me for everything in the divorce. I work in software development and my company landed this massive contract last year that required me to put in serious overtime. We're talking 60 to 70 hours a week for months because the client kept changing requirements and the deadline was set in stone. My wife Claire understood this was temporary and that the bonus would set us up really well financially. She had been talking about wanting to get back into fitness after gaining weight during the pandemic, so I suggested she find a gym or trainer to help her feel better about herself. Clara found this CrossFit gym about 15 minutes from our house and started going 3 times a week. The trainer there was this guy named Jack who specialized in working with beginners and she seemed really motivated by his training style. I was happy she found something that got her excited about fitness again because she had been complaining about feeling sluggish and unhappy with her body for months. The gym membership was expensive, but I figured it was worth it if it helped her confidence and we could afford it with all the overtime I was pulling. At first everything seemed great and Clara would come home from workouts talking about how challenging the exercises were and how much stronger she was getting. She started meal prepping and buying all these supplements and workout clothes, which I supported because I wanted her to succeed. Jack apparently gave all his clients detailed nutrition plans and exercise routines to follow at home, which seemed professional and thorough. Clara would show me pictures of her progress and she was definitely getting more toned and seemed happier overall. The weird part started when Clara began staying at the gym longer and longer. She said Jack was giving her extra attention because she was progressing so fast and that he wanted to help her train for some kind of CrossFit competition. I thought this was great because Clara had never been particularly athletic growing up and it seemed like she was discovering a new passion. She started going to the gym 5 days a week instead of 3 and sometimes she would be there for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Around month 3 of her training, Clara started getting text messages at all hours from what she said was her CrossFit group chat. The phone would buzz during dinner and she would immediately check it and sometimes laugh or respond right away. When I asked what was so urgent, she said the group was really supportive and they shared workout tips and motivational stuff throughout the day. I didn't think much of it because I know how intense fitness communities can get and people do tend to bond over shared goals and struggles. Clara also started changing her appearance in ways that seemed more dramatic than just getting in shape. She got highlights in her hair and started wearing different makeup and bought all these new clothes that were tighter and more revealing than what she usually wore. She said she was just feeling more confident and wanted to show off her hard work, which made sense to me. She was definitely looking good and I complimented her regularly and told her how proud I was of her transformation. The problems really started when Clara began questioning everything about our relationship and our future plans. We had been married for 4 years and had talked about buying a bigger house and starting a family, but suddenly she was saying she needed to focus on herself and wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. She would make comments about how I was always working and never paid attention to her needs and that she was discovering she wanted different things in life than what we had planned together. These conversations always happened when I was exhausted from work and trying to relax, so I usually just agreed with her and said we could talk about it more when the big project was finished. I figured she was just going through some kind of quarter-life crisis thing and that once I had more time to spend with her and plan dates and trips she would remember why we worked well together. Looking back, I realized she was probably already involved with Jack by this point, but I trusted her completely and never suspected anything. The gym started having all these social events that Clara would attend without me because I was always working late or had to work weekends. There were group hiking trips and nutrition seminars and even some kind of camping retreat that lasted a whole weekend. Clara said I wouldn't enjoy these activities because I wasn't into fitness and that it was important for her to have her own social circle outside of our relationship. This seemed reasonable to me and I encouraged her to make new friends and pursue her interests. What I didn't realize was that Jack was organizing most of these events and that they were basically dates disguised as group activities. Clara would come home from these things talking about how inspiring Jack was and how he had helped her see that she was capable of so much more than she had ever realized. She started using all this motivational language about pushing boundaries and not settling for mediocrity, which seemed like typical gym talk to me at the time. The breakthrough moment came when Clara left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower and it kept buzzing with notifications. I normally never look at her phone because I respect privacy, but the constant buzzing was annoying me while I was trying to eat breakfast and I glanced over to see if it was something urgent. The preview showed a text from Jack saying something about how he couldn't wait to wake up next to her every morning and that he had been looking at apartments for them to move into together. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach and I just stood there staring at the phone trying to process what I had read. The shower was still running, so I picked up the phone and started scrolling through their conversation, which went back months and was absolutely devastating to read. They were talking about being in love and planning their future together and making fun of me for being clueless and working all the time. Clara had sent him pictures of our house and was calculating how much money she would get in a divorce, and they were both laughing about how easy it would be to take me for everything. There were hundreds of messages between them talking about their relationship and their plans and how stupid I was for paying for her gym membership while she was having an affair with her trainer. Jack was telling her that she deserved better than being married to someone who cared more about work than his wife, and Clara was agreeing and saying she realized she had settled for security instead of passion. They had been sleeping together for at least 2 months based on the messages and were making plans for her to file for divorce as soon as my big work project was finished so she could maximize the settlement amount. The worst part was reading Clara's messages about how she was only staying with me until she could figure out the best way to leave and take as much money as possible. She was asking Jack about whether she should try to get pregnant before filing for divorce to increase the alimony payments, and they were researching divorce lawyers together. Clara was also telling Jack intimate details about our relationship and our sex life and making jokes about my appearance and personality that were incredibly hurtful to read. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone and then put her phone back exactly where I found it. When Clara came out of the shower, I acted completely normal and went to work like nothing had happened, but I spent the entire day thinking about what to do next. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, but I realized that would give her time to prepare her story and hide evidence and potentially make the divorce process more difficult for me. Instead, I decided to be strategic about it and started documenting everything while pretending I didn't know what was happening. I installed software on our shared computer that would track her online activity, and I started paying attention to her schedule and behavior patterns. I also began quietly consulting with divorce lawyers to understand my options and how to protect myself financially. The advice I got was to gather as much evidence as possible before making any moves and to start separating our finances without making it obvious. Over the next few weeks, I watched Clara continue her affair while lying to my face every single day. She would come home from the gym and tell me about her workouts while she had actually been with Jack, and then she would text him later about how guilty she felt for deceiving me but how excited she was about their future together. The level of deception was incredible and it was torture to watch, but I knew I needed to be patient and gather more evidence. Clara became increasingly distant and critical during this time and started picking fights with me about trivial things. She would complain that I left dishes in the sink, or that I was watching too much television, or that I wasn't planning enough romantic gestures for her. These arguments were clearly designed to make me look like a bad husband and give her justification for wanting a divorce, but I just stayed calm and tried to be agreeable, which seemed to frustrate her. The confrontation finally happened when Clara came home from one of Jack's group hiking trips and announced that she wanted to have a serious conversation about our relationship. She sat me down and started giving me this speech about how she had been doing a lot of soul searching and realized that we had grown apart and wanted different things in life. She said she thought we should consider separation so she could figure out what she really wanted, and that maybe we had gotten married too young and rushed into things. I listened to this whole performance and then told her I knew about Jack and had seen all their text messages and knew they had been planning this conversation for weeks. Clara's face went completely white and she started stammering and trying to deny it, but I showed her the screenshots on my phone and watched her realize that I had caught her completely red-handed. She immediately started crying and saying it wasn't what it looked like and that she had just been confused and that Jack had manipulated her into thinking she was unhappy. But I wasn't buying any of her excuses and told her I had already spoken to a divorce lawyer and that I knew about all their plans to take me for everything in the settlement. Clara got angry then and started yelling that I had been ignoring her for months and that Jack had given her attention and made her feel special in ways that I never had. She said I was a workaholic who cared more about money than his wife and that she deserved to be with someone who appreciated her. I told her that was fine and that she could be with Jack as much as she wanted because I was filing for divorce immediately and that I had evidence of her adultery which would affect the settlement terms. Clara started panicking then and saying she didn't want a divorce and that she would stop seeing Jack if I would just forgive her and go to counseling with her. She was crying and begging and saying she had made a terrible mistake, but I told her it was too late and that I would never be able to trust her again. The next morning I moved out of the house and went to stay with my brother while I filed the divorce papers. Clara kept calling and texting me begging for another chance and saying she would do anything to fix things, but I blocked her number and told her to communicate through lawyers only. I also called the CrossFit gym and spoke to the owner about Jack having an affair with a married client, which apparently violated their professional ethics policy, and he was fired immediately. The divorce process took about 4 months and Clara tried every trick she could think of to get more money, but the evidence of her adultery and the fact that she had been planning to defraud me worked strongly in my favor. She ended up getting much less than she had originally planned, and Jack dumped her as soon as he realized she wasn't going to be getting a big settlement check. By the time everything was finalized, Clara had lost her affair partner and most of her friends who were disgusted by her behavior, and she was stuck trying to afford rent on her part-time job income. I kept the house and most of our assets and got promoted at work once the big project was finished, which came with a substantial raise and bonus. The whole experience taught me to trust my instincts more and not to ignore red flags just because I want to believe the best in people. Clara destroyed our marriage for a guy who was just using her for sex and easy money, and now she has to live with the consequences of those choices while I'm moving on with my life. Update: wife's affair partner dumped her immediately after our divorce was finalized. She lost her job and apartment, and showed up at my door begging for another chance. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago and I thought I was done dealing with Clara and all the drama she created, but apparently she had other plans. Jack dropped her the day after she signed the final papers, which shouldn't have surprised anyone since he was obviously just using her for sex and thought he was going to get access to half my assets through her. When that didn't work out, he moved on to his next victim and left Clara to deal with the mess she had made of her life. Clara had been staying in this expensive apartment that she could barely afford on her part-time salary from the boutique where she worked selling overpriced clothes to suburban moms. She was probably expecting Jack to move in with her and help with the rent, but when he disappeared she couldn't make the payments and got evicted after just 2 months. Her landlord called me looking for her forwarding address because she owed money and had damaged the carpet with some kind of red wine stain that was going to cost hundreds to fix. The boutique also fired her around the same time because she had been calling in sick constantly during the divorce proceedings and her manager got tired of her unreliable attendance. Clara claimed this was unfair because she was going through personal problems, but the truth is she had been a terrible employee even before the affair started and they were just looking for an excuse to get rid of her. She was always showing up late and spending time on her phone instead of helping customers and had gotten several warnings about her attitude. So now Clara was unemployed and homeless and apparently running out of options because last Tuesday she showed up at my front door at 8 in the evening crying and begging me to let her come inside so we could talk. I was watching a movie and eating leftover pizza and generally enjoying my peaceful evening when I heard someone pounding on the door and yelling my name. When I looked through the peephole and saw it was Clara, I almost didn't answer, but she kept making noise and I was worried the neighbors would complain. When I opened the door, Clara looked terrible and was obviously drunk or on something because her makeup was smeared and her hair was a mess and she was wearing the same clothes she had worn to court the last time I saw her. She immediately pushed past me into the house without being invited and started walking around touching things and crying about how much she missed living there and how everything reminded her of our good times together. I told her she needed to leave immediately because she didn't live there anymore and had no right to just walk into my house, but she ignored me and sat down on the couch where we used to watch movies together. Clara started giving me this long speech about how she had made the biggest mistake of her life and that Jack had been lying to her and manipulating her the whole time and that she realized now that I was the only man who had ever really loved her and treated her right. She said Jack had promised her all these things about their future together, but as soon as the divorce was final he told her he wasn't ready for a serious relationship and that he needed space to figure out what he wanted. Clara found out through friends at the gym that Jack was already sleeping with another married woman whose husband was some kind of doctor or lawyer with serious money. Apparently this was a pattern for Jack and he specifically targeted married women who were unhappy and vulnerable and convinced them to leave their husbands for him. Clara was crying and telling me that she understood now that Jack had been using her and that she had thrown away the best thing in her life for someone who never cared about her at all. She said she had been stupid and naive and that she would do anything to make things right between us if I would just give her another chance to prove that she could be the wife I deserved. Clara kept saying she loved me and that Jack had made her temporarily crazy, but that being with him had made her realize how good our marriage actually was. I listened to all of this without saying much because I wanted to hear exactly how she was going to try to justify what she had done and whether she would take any real responsibility for her choices. But everything Clara said was about how Jack had manipulated her and how she was a victim of his lies and that she wasn't really responsible for the affair because she had been emotionally vulnerable and he had taken advantage of her confusion. Clara never once acknowledged that she had made a deliberate choice to cheat on me and lie to me for months while planning to steal my money in a divorce. She never apologized for the cruel things she had said about me in her text messages with Jack or for betraying my trust in the most fundamental way possible. Instead, she kept talking about how Jack had made her believe things about our relationship that weren't true and how she realized now that he was just telling her what she wanted to hear. When Clara finally stopped talking, I told her that nothing she had said changed anything and that I would never take her back under any circumstances. I explained that her relationship with Jack was irrelevant to me and that even if he had never existed I still wouldn't want to be married to someone who could lie and cheat and plan to defraud me the way she had done. I told her that her problems with money and housing were consequences of her own actions and that I wasn't going to rescue her from the situation she had created. Clara got angry then and started yelling that I was being cruel and heartless and that if I really loved her I would understand that people make mistakes and that marriages are supposed to survive difficult times. She said I was throwing away 4 years together over one mistake and that Jack had been the real problem and now that he was gone we could work things out if I would just stop being so stubborn and vindictive. I told Clara that cheating on your spouse for months while planning to rob them in a divorce wasn't one mistake but a series of deliberate choices and that I had no interest in being married to someone who would do those things to me. I said that she had shown me exactly who she really was and that I believed her the first time and didn't need to see it again. Clara kept arguing and saying I was being unfair and that she deserved forgiveness, but I told her she needed to leave my house immediately or I would call the police. Clara finally left, but not before telling me that I would regret this decision and that someday I would realize that what we had was special and that I was making a huge mistake by not giving her another chance. She said she would keep trying to contact me because she knew that deep down I still loved her and that eventually I would come to my senses and remember all the good times we had shared together. I changed the locks the next day and installed a security camera system because I don't trust Clara not to try to get into the house when I'm not home. I also sent a message to her through my lawyer telling her that any further contact with me would be considered harassment and that I would pursue legal action if she didn't stay away from my property and stop trying to communicate with me. My brother thinks I should feel sorry for Clara because she obviously made a terrible decision and is paying a heavy price for it, but I don't feel bad for her at all. She chose to destroy our marriage for a guy who was clearly using her, and now she has to live with the consequences of that choice. I'm not responsible for fixing the problems she created, and I'm not going to let her back into my life so she can hurt me again when the next attractive guy pays attention to her. The whole situation has actually made me feel more confident about the divorce and more certain that I made the right decision. Seeing Clara drunk and desperate and trying to manipulate me into taking her back just reminded me of all the lies she told and all the ways she betrayed my trust. I'm much happier living alone in my house and not having to worry about what she's doing behind my back or whether she's planning to leave me for someone else. Update 2. Ex-wife had to move back to her parents' home in another state and is working at a mall kiosk. Her former best friend apologized to me for enabling the affair. Meanwhile, I got promoted and am completely renovating the house. Things have been going really well for me since the last update, and I'm starting to feel like myself again after all the chaos Clara created in my life. I got a major promotion at work that came with a 40% salary increase and much better benefits, including stock options and a company car. The new position is challenging, but I'm working normal hours again and have time to focus on my personal life and hobbies, which feels incredible after all those months of overtime. Clara's situation has gotten even worse since she showed up at my house begging for another chance. She couldn't find another job in town because word got around about her being fired from the boutique, and apparently she has a reputation now for being unreliable and dramatic. The few places that were willing to interview her weren't offering enough money for her to afford even a cheap apartment, and she ended up having to move back to her parents' house in Ohio, which is about 6 hours away from here. I found out about Clara's living situation through her former best friend Jessica, who came to see me about 2 weeks ago. Jessica had been one of the people who helped Clara hide the affair by covering for her when she was supposedly at girls' nights or shopping trips that were actually dates with Jack. I had always liked Jessica and thought she was a good friend to Clara, but I was pretty disgusted when I realized she had been lying to me for months and helping Clara cheat. Jessica showed up at my house on a Saturday morning looking nervous and guilty and asked if she could talk to me for a few minutes. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear whatever she had to say, but I was curious, so I let her in and made coffee while she explained why she was there. Jessica told me she had been feeling terrible about her role in the affair and that she wanted to apologize and explain what had really been happening from her perspective. According to Jessica, Clara had told her that our marriage was already over and that I was emotionally abusive and controlling, and that she was afraid to ask for a divorce because I would try to hurt her financially. Clara claimed I was having an affair of my own and that the only reason she got involved with Jack was because I had checked out of the relationship completely and was planning to leave her anyway. Jessica said she believed these stories because Clara was very convincing and seemed genuinely unhappy, and that she thought she was helping a friend escape from a bad situation. Clara had asked Jessica to lie about where she was going and what she was doing because she said I was tracking her movements and would get violent if I found out she was seeing someone else. Jessica admitted she should have questioned these stories more, but that Clara was very good at playing the victim and making people feel sorry for her. When the divorce happened and the truth came out about Clara's planning and scheming, Jessica realized she had been completely manipulated and used. Clara had never told her about the text messages planning to take me for everything or about making fun of me and calculating settlement amounts. Jessica found out about these details from mutual friends who had heard the story, and she was horrified that she had helped someone do that to their spouse. Jessica apologized repeatedly and said she felt sick about her part in the whole situation and that she wanted me to know she never would have helped if she had known what Clara was really doing. She said she had tried to talk to Clara about taking responsibility for her actions, but that Clara was still playing victim and blaming everyone else for her problems, including me and Jack and even Jessica for not supporting her enough during the divorce. I told Jessica I appreciated her coming to apologize, but that I was still hurt by her actions and that it was going to take time for me to trust her again. Jessica understood and said she didn't expect forgiveness right away, but that she wanted me to know the truth about what Clara had told her and that she regretted believing the lies without questioning them more carefully. Jessica also told me that Clara was working at some kind of kiosk in a mall near her parents' house selling phone cases and accessories for minimum wage. Apparently Clara hates the job and is constantly complaining to anyone who will listen about how unfair her life has become and how I ruined everything by being vindictive and unforgiving. Clara is still telling people that Jack manipulated her and that I should have been more understanding about her mistake instead of destroying her financially. The funny part is that Clara's parents are apparently not very sympathetic to her situation because they never liked her behavior during our marriage and they blame her for throwing away a good relationship with a stable man who treated her well. Jessica said Clara's mom has been making comments about how Clara always wanted more than she had and never appreciated what was right in front of her, and that maybe living in their basement and working at the mall would teach her some humility. Meanwhile, my life has been getting better in every way since Clara left. I used my promotion bonus to start completely renovating the house, which had needed updating for years, but Clara had always vetoed any major changes because she said they were too expensive or disruptive. Now I can do whatever I want, and I'm having the kitchen completely redone with new appliances and granite countertops and custom cabinets that will probably double the value of the house. I'm also renovating the master bedroom and bathroom, which feels important psychologically because those rooms had too many memories of Clara and I wanted to make them feel completely different. I hired a designer who helped me choose paint colors and furniture and lighting that reflects my personal taste instead of the compromise style Clara and I had developed together. The whole house is starting to feel like mine instead of ours, which is exactly what I wanted. The renovation project has been incredibly satisfying and therapeutic, and I've been learning to do some of the work myself, which gives me a sense of accomplishment that I never got from my office job. I installed new hardwood floors in the living room and dining room and painted most of the interior walls and even learned how to tile the guest bathroom. Having these new skills and seeing the physical transformation of my living space has been great for my confidence and mental health. I've also been getting back into hobbies that I had neglected during the final years of my marriage, when Clara was always demanding attention or complaining about money or creating drama about something. I bought a new mountain bike and have been exploring trails around the city, and I started taking guitar lessons, which is something I always wanted to do but never had time for when I was working so much overtime and trying to keep Clara happy. My social life has improved dramatically now that I don't have to worry about Clara's moods or include her in every plan or deal with her jealousy when I wanted to spend time with friends. I've been hanging out with my brother more and reconnecting with old friends who had distanced themselves during my marriage because they didn't like Clara's attitude and behavior. It turns out several people had tried to warn me about red flags they noticed, but I had been too defensive and loyal to listen to their concerns. Work has been much more enjoyable now that I'm not stressed about problems at home and I can focus completely on my projects and career development. My new boss has been impressed with my performance and has hinted that there might be even more advancement opportunities coming up if I continue to exceed expectations. The company is expanding into new markets and they want people they can trust to take on leadership roles in the new divisions. I'm also sleeping better and eating better and generally taking better care of myself now that I don't have Clara's constant criticism and negativity affecting my mood every day. I realized that living with someone who was secretly planning to betray me had been creating a lot of stress and anxiety that I wasn't even fully aware of at the time. Now that she's gone, I feel more relaxed and optimistic about the future than I have in years. The house renovations should be finished in another month, and then I'm planning to have a housewarming party to celebrate the new space and my new life. I'm going to invite all the friends and family members who supported me during the divorce and show off all the improvements I've made. It will be good to fill the house with positive energy and laughter instead of the tension and arguments that characterized the last year of my marriage to Clara. Final update: 6 months post-divorce, I'm in the best shape of my life, got a major promotion with bonus, started rock climbing, and am casually dating. Ex-wife's affair partner has already moved on to destroying his third marriage this year. I wanted to give one final update on how everything has turned out because my life has changed so dramatically since discovering Clara's affair, and I think people might be interested in seeing how things worked out long term. It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and I can honestly say this has been the best year of my adult life despite all the initial pain and chaos that Clara's betrayal caused. The house renovation project was completed 2 months ago and the transformation is incredible. Every room looks completely different and feels like a space that reflects my personality and interests instead of the compromises I made during my marriage. The kitchen renovation alone increased the home's value by almost $30,000 according to the appraiser, and I love cooking in there now with all the modern appliances and extra counter space for meal prep. I had the housewarming party I mentioned in my last update, and it was amazing to see the house full of friends and family who were genuinely happy for me and excited about my new beginning. Several people commented on how relaxed and confident I seemed compared to how stressed and tired I had been during the final years of my marriage. My brother gave a toast about how proud he was of me for handling everything with dignity and coming out stronger on the other side. Work continues to go incredibly well, and I received another promotion last month that came with a substantial bonus and even more responsibility. I'm now managing a team of 12 developers and leading the implementation of a new software platform that could revolutionize how our industry handles data security. The project is challenging but exciting, and I'm working with some of the smartest people I've ever met, which pushes me to keep improving my own skills. The financial benefits of my career advancement have been life-changing, and I've been able to pay off all my credit cards and student loans and start investing seriously for the first time in my life. I also bought a new car to replace the old sedan I had been driving for 8 years and got a truck that's more practical for my outdoor activities and home improvement projects. Having this level of financial security and freedom feels incredible after years of worrying about money and having to justify every purchase to Clara. I started rock climbing about 4 months ago after a coworker invited me to try an indoor climbing gym, and I immediately fell in love with the sport. It's physically challenging but also requires mental focus and problem-solving skills that appeal to my personality. I've been going to the gym 3 times a week and have progressed from beginner routes to intermediate difficulty levels, and I'm planning to try outdoor climbing this spring when the weather gets better. The rock climbing community has been great for my social life, and I've made several new friends who share my interest in outdoor activities and adventure sports. We've been planning weekend trips to different climbing areas, and I'm excited to explore more of the natural beauty in our region. Having these active hobbies has been perfect for my physical and mental health, and I'm in the best shape I've been in since college. I've also started dating again, which was something I wasn't sure I would be ready for after everything that happened with Clara. I'm not looking for anything serious right now, but I've been meeting interesting women through dating apps and social activities and remembering what it's like to have fun and flirtatious conversations without worrying about hidden agendas or deception. It's been refreshing to interact with people who are honest and straightforward about their intentions and interests. One woman I've been seeing casually is a veterinarian who shares my love of outdoor activities and has been teaching me about hiking and camping in areas I never knew existed. Another is an artist who has been showing me galleries and cultural events that have expanded my appreciation for creative expression. Having these diverse experiences and perspectives in my life has been enriching in ways I never expected and has helped me grow as a person. The contrast between my current dating experiences and my marriage to Clara is striking and has helped me understand how unhealthy our relationship had become even before the affair started. The women I'm meeting now are independent and accomplished and don't expect me to solve their problems or support them financially. They have their own careers and interests and want to share experiences rather than take from me, which feels much more balanced and sustainable. As for Clara, I've heard through mutual friends that her situation has continued to deteriorate and she's apparently stuck living with her parents indefinitely because she can't afford to move out on her mall job salary. Jessica told me that Clara has been trying to get back into fitness instruction, but that the story of her affair with Jack has followed her, and most gym owners don't want to hire someone with that kind of reputation for unprofessional behavior. Clara has also been struggling with depression and anxiety according to Jessica, and has been seeing a therapist who apparently keeps telling her that she needs to take responsibility for her actions and stop blaming other people for the consequences of her choices. This seems to be frustrating Clara because she still wants to believe that Jack manipulated her and that I was too harsh and unforgiving in the divorce proceedings. The most interesting development is what happened with Jack after he dumped Clara. Apparently his pattern of targeting married women continued, and he's been involved in breaking up 2 more marriages since then. One of his victims was the wife of a prominent local businessman who hired a private investigator and exposed Jack's entire operation, including evidence that he had been deliberately seducing married clients as part of some kind of psychological game. The businessman's lawyer sent letters to several gyms warning them about Jack's behavior and threatening legal action if they employed him, knowing about his history of destroying marriages. Jack lost his job and his professional certifications and apparently had to leave town because too many people knew about his activities. The irony is that Clara threw away our marriage for someone who turned out to be a predator who never cared about her at all and who has now been exposed and run out of town. I don't feel sorry for either Clara or Jack because they both made deliberate choices to hurt innocent people for their own selfish gratification. Clara knew exactly what she was doing when she lied to me and planned to steal my money, and Jack knew he was destroying families for his own entertainment. They both got exactly what they deserved, and I'm glad they're both facing consequences for their actions. Looking back on everything that happened, I can see that discovering Clara's affair was actually the best thing that could have happened to me, even though it was painful at the time. I was trapped in a marriage with someone who didn't respect me and was planning to betray me, and I might never have realized how unhappy I had become if she hadn't forced the issue by getting caught. Now I have a beautiful home that reflects my personal taste, a thriving career that challenges and rewards me, an active social life with people who genuinely care about me, and the freedom to pursue my interests without having to negotiate or compromise with someone who was secretly working against me. I'm healthier and happier and more confident than I've been in years, and I'm excited about all the possibilities that lie ahead. The experience taught me to trust my instincts more and not to ignore red flags just because I want to believe the best in people. It also showed me the importance of having friends and family who will tell you the truth even when it's difficult to hear, and who will support you when you need to make hard decisions about your life. I'm grateful for everyone who helped me through the divorce process and the rebuilding period afterward, and I'm proud of how I handled everything with dignity and integrity despite the temptation to be vindictive or petty. Taking the high road wasn't always easy, but it allowed me to move forward with a clear conscience and focus on building the life I actually want instead of getting stuck in bitterness and resentment. This will be my final update on this situation because I consider that chapter of my life completely closed, and I'm ready to focus entirely on the future. I hope my story helps other people who might be dealing with similar betrayals to know that it's possible to not only survive but to thrive after someone you trusted tries to destroy your life. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you.